her fingers wrapped around the IV tube. "If you die tonight," Victoria whispered into her husband's ear, "I'll finally be free." She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She squeezed the tube slightly, testing how easy it would be. 22 years of smiling. 22 years of pretending. And now Marcus Thornton lay helpless, a billionaire reduced to nothing but beeping machines and shallow breaths. Victoria leaned closer. Her lips brushed his cheek. "I've been waiting for this moment," she breathed. "You have no idea how long." She released the tube. "Not yet. Soon." What Victoria didn't know behind those closed eyes, Marcus heard everything. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your city. Subscribe and follow this story to the very end, because some truths are only revealed when we think no one is listening. The call came at 7:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening in September. Daniel Thornton was sitting in his office on the 32nd floor of Thornton Industries headquarters in downtown Chicago when his assistant burst through the door without knocking. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. "Mr. Thornton," she said. "Your brother. There's been an accident." Daniel was on his feet before she finished the sentence. "What happened?" "Where is he?" "Interstate 94. A semi-truck collision. They're taking him to Northwestern Memorial. It's bad, sir. They're saying it's really bad." Daniel grabbed his jacket and ran. The drive to the hospital should have taken 20 minutes. Daniel made it in 12 running red lights, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. His phone rang 3 times. He ignored it. Whatever anyone had to say could wait until he saw his brother alive. "Please God," he whispered. "Please let him be alive." Marcus Thornton was more than a brother to Daniel. He was a father figure, a mentor, a best friend, and the only family Daniel had left in this world. Their parents had died when Daniel was 19, and Marcus, 10 years older, had stepped in without hesitation. He had paid for Daniel's college. He had given Daniel his first job. He had taught Daniel everything he knew about business, about integrity, about what it meant to be a man who kept his word. And now, Marcus was somewhere in that hospital, fighting for his life. Daniel burst through the emergency room doors and nearly collided with a nurse. "Marcus Thornton," he said breathlessly. "Where is he?" "I'm his brother." The nurse's expression shifted to something careful, something practiced. "Sir, if you'll come with me, just tell me if he's alive. He's in surgery. That's all I can tell you right now. Please follow me." She led him to a private waiting area on the 4th floor, away from the crowded emergency room, away from the chaos below. The room was quiet, sterile, filled with expensive furniture that did nothing to disguise the fact that this was a place where families came to receive terrible news. Daniel paced. He couldn't sit. Sitting felt like giving up. The minutes crawled by like hours. He called his assistant and told her to cancel everything on his calendar indefinitely. He called Marcus's personal attorney, Robert Chen, and left a voicemail. He tried calling Victoria 3 times, but each call went straight to voicemail. Where the hell was she? At 9:23 p.m., the door opened. Victoria Thornton swept into the room like a woman walking onto a stage. Her makeup was perfect, not a single smudge, despite the tears she was supposedly crying. Her black dress looked like something she'd wear to a charity gala. Her heels clicked against the floor with a rhythm that sounded almost impatient. "Daniel," she gasped, rushing toward him. "Oh, Daniel, have you heard anything?" She wrapped her arms around him, and Daniel felt her body against his, stiff and controlled, despite the theatrical trembling. "He's still in surgery," Daniel said, stepping back slightly. "Where were you?" "I tried calling." Victoria pressed a hand to her chest. "I was at a dinner. My phone was on silent. I came as soon as I heard." A dinner. Marcus was bleeding out on a highway, and his wife was at a dinner. Daniel pushed the thought away. He was being unfair. Victoria couldn't have known. "Have the doctors told you anything?" Victoria asked. "Not yet. It was a truck collision. That's all I know." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, perfect crystalline drops that caught the fluorescent light. "My poor Marcus," she whispered. "My poor, poor husband." Daniel studied her face. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't identify what. Maybe it was the shock. Maybe it was the fear clouding his judgment. At 10:15 p.m., the surgeon emerged. Dr. James Patterson was a man in his 60s with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much death. He still wore his surgical scrubs, and there were bloodstains on his shoes. Daniel's blood ran cold. "Family of Marcus Thornton?" the doctor asked. Daniel stepped forward. "I'm his brother. This is his wife." Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. "Please, sit down." "Just tell us." Victoria said, her voice cracking beautifully. "Is he alive?" The surgeon took a breath. "Mr. Thornton survived the surgery, but his injuries are severe. He has multiple fractures, internal bleeding that we managed to control, and significant trauma to his brain. There's swelling that we're monitoring closely." Daniel's legs nearly gave out. "Brain trauma? What does that mean?" Daniel asked. "Will he recover?" "It's too early to say." Dr. Patterson replied carefully. "Right now, Mr. Thornton is in a coma. He's unresponsive to external stimuli. We don't know when or if he'll wake up. It could be days, it could be weeks, or it could be never." Victoria let out a sob and collapsed into a chair. Daniel stood frozen, his mind refusing to process the words. "Can we see him?" Daniel finally asked. "One at a time," the doctor said. "And please prepare yourselves. He's on life support. There are machines tubes. It can be difficult to see a loved one in that condition." Victoria stood immediately, smoothing her dress. "I need to see my husband." Daniel wanted to argue. He wanted to push past her and be the first one through that door. But Victoria was already moving. Following the doctor down the corridor, her heels clicking with that same steady, impatient rhythm. Daniel waited. 20 minutes later, Victoria emerged, her face streaked with tears, her hand pressed to her mouth. "Oh, Daniel," she cried, falling into his arms. "He looks so helpless. My strong, beautiful husband just lying there." Daniel held her awkwardly, patting her back. "I'm going to see him now." "Of course," Victoria whispered. "Take your time." Daniel walked down the corridor to room 417. He paused outside the door, steeling himself for what he was about to see. Nothing could have prepared him. Marcus Thornton lay motionless on the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hissed and pumped air into his lungs. Tubes snaked from his arms and nose. Bandages wrapped his head. His face, usually so animated, so full of life and determination, was slack and empty. Daniel approached slowly, his legs moving without his permission. He reached the bedside and looked down at his brother. "Mark," he whispered. "Can you hear me?" No response. Not even a flicker. Daniel sat down heavily in the chair beside the bed. He reached out and took Marcus's hand, holding it gently. "I don't know if you're in there somewhere," Daniel said quietly. "But if you are, I need you to know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He squeezed his brother's hand. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you, I promise." What Daniel didn't know, what no one could have known, was that Marcus Thornton heard every word. Inside his unmoving body, Marcus was screaming. The accident had come out of nowhere. One moment he was driving, thinking about the presentation he needed to review tomorrow, about the new development project on the south side, about calling Daniel to finally tell him what he'd discovered about Victoria. The next moment, metal was shrieking, glass was exploding, and the world was spinning in directions that didn't make sense. Then, nothing. And then this. Marcus woke up in darkness, heavy and suffocating. He tried to open his eyes and couldn't. He tried to move his arms and couldn't. He tried to scream and couldn't. But he could hear. He heard the doctors discussing his condition in low clinical terms. He heard the nurses adjusting his machines, their voices gentle and professional. He heard Daniel's voice, thick with emotion, promising to stay by his side. And then he heard Victoria. She came into the room after Daniel left, her footsteps unmistakable. Marcus had memorized the sound of his wife's walk over 22 years of marriage, that confident click, click, click that had once made his heart race with anticipation. Now it made his blood run cold. Victoria stood by his bed for a long moment without speaking. Marcus strained with everything he had to move to show her he was aware, to open his eyes and tell her he was still there. Nothing happened. Finally, Victoria spoke. "Well," she said softly, "look at you now." Her voice was different. The trembling was gone. The performance had ended. What remained was something flat, something cold, something Marcus had never heard before. 22 years. Victoria continued. 22 years of smiling for cameras and attending boring dinners and pretending to care about your precious company. Marcus felt something cracking inside him. "Do you know what it's like to be invisible?" Victoria asked. "To stand next to the great Marcus Thornton and have everyone look right through you, to be introduced as his wife, like I'm nothing but an accessory to your success." She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "I had dreams once. Did you know that? Before you. Before all of this. I was going to be something. Someone. Not just Mrs. Marcus Thornton standing 3 steps behind, smiling on command." Marcus wanted to argue with her. He had never treated her like an accessory. He had given her everything, a life most people could only dream of: unlimited credit cards, a mansion in Lake Forest, a penthouse in Chicago, trips around the world. But he couldn't speak. He could only listen. Victoria moved closer. Marcus felt the mattress dip as she sat on the edge of the bed. "The doctors don't think you'll wake up," she said. "They told me to prepare myself. Said it could be days or weeks, or you might never come back at all." She was quiet for a moment. "I have to admit," she continued, her voice dropping to barely a whisper, "part of me is hoping you don't." Marcus's heart pounded against his ribs. The monitors around him didn't change, didn't reveal the storm raging inside his broken body. "If you die tonight," Victoria whispered, leaning close, her breath warm against his ear, "I'll finally be free." She patted his hand, a gesture that might have looked tender to anyone watching. "Sleep well, darling," she said. Then she stood and walked out, her heels clicking against the floor, the sound fading down the corridor until Marcus was alone with nothing but the steady beep of machines and the shattering realization that his wife wanted him dead. The first night was the longest of Marcus's life. He lay in darkness, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do anything but think. And his thoughts were sharp as broken glass. Victoria. 22 years of marriage. 2 decades of building a life together, of shared meals and shared beds and shared memories. Had it all been a lie, Marcus searched his memory, looking for signs he had missed, moments when the mask had slipped. There had been arguments, sure. What marriage didn't have arguments? Victoria complained sometimes about his long hours, about the time he spent at job sites instead of at home, about the way his work always seemed to come first. But he had thought she understood. He had thought she knew that everything he built, everything he sacrificed, was for their future, for the legacy they would leave behind. Now, he wondered if she had been counting the days until that future included his funeral. A nurse entered the room around midnight. Her footsteps were soft, careful, different from Victoria's aggressive clicks. She moved quietly around the bed, checking monitors, adjusting tubes, doing the small tasks that kept him alive. "Dr. Thornton," she said softly. "I'm Angela. I'll be taking care of you tonight." Her voice was warm, genuine. Marcus clung to it like a lifeline. "I don't know if you can hear me," Angela continued. "The doctors say you can't, but I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've learned that people are stronger than machines give them credit for." She paused, adjusting something near his head. "So I'm going to talk to you anyway," she said, "because if you are in there somewhere, I want you to know you're not alone." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something that might have been gratitude, or hope, or simply the relief of being seen. "Your brother was here earlier," Angela continued. "He seems like a good man. He held your hand and talked to you for almost an hour." She was quiet for a moment. "Your wife was here too," Angela said, her voice neutral but careful. She didn't stay as long. Marcus wondered what Angela had seen, what she had noticed. Nurses were observant. They had to be. Did she see the difference between Daniel's genuine grief and Victoria's performance? "I'll be checking on you throughout the night," Angela said. "If you need anything, I'll be right outside." She touched his hand gently, a brief human contact that felt like the first real thing Marcus had experienced since the accident. Then she left, and Marcus was alone again. Victoria returned the next morning. This time Daniel was with her. They entered together, and Marcus listened to their footsteps, trying to read the dynamic between them. "He looks the same," Daniel said quietly. "The doctors say we should talk to him," Victoria replied. "They say sometimes comatose patients can hear." "Do you believe that?" Victoria's laugh was soft, dismissive. "I believe doctors say a lot of things to give families false hope." Daniel didn't respond. Marcus could almost feel his brother's discomfort. "I'm going to step outside and call Robert," Daniel said. "He needs an update on Marcus's condition." "Of course," Victoria replied. "I'll sit with him." Daniel's footsteps retreated. The door clicked shut. Victoria didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, and Marcus could feel her eyes on him, assessing, calculating. "Your brother is suspicious," she finally said. "He keeps watching me like he's waiting for me to make a mistake." She moved closer to the bed. "I've been very careful, 22 years of being the perfect wife, smiling at the right moments, crying at the right moments, playing my role so well that everyone believes it." She sat down in the chair beside his bed. "But you were never going to leave me anything." "Were you?" Victoria continued. "I saw the documents, Marcus. I know you were meeting with Robert about changing your will." Marcus's mind raced. The documents. She had found them. 3 months ago, Marcus had begun to suspect that something was wrong. Small things at first. Money moving through accounts that Victoria shouldn't have access to. Unexplained charges on credit cards she claimed she never used. Phone calls she took in other rooms, her voice dropping to whispers. He had hired a private investigator. The results had been devastating. Victoria had been having an affair for almost 2 years. His name was Richard Hayes, a venture capitalist Marcus had met at several charity events. A man who had smiled at Marcus, shaken his hand, and then gone home to sleep with his wife. But it wasn't just the affair. The investigator had also discovered financial irregularities. Large sums being transferred to accounts Marcus didn't recognize. A lawyer who specialized in prenuptial disputes being consulted without Marcus's knowledge. Victoria had been planning something. Marcus just hadn't figured out what before the accident. Now he knew. "You weren't just going to leave me," Victoria said. "You were going to destroy me. Cut me off without a penny, expose the affair, humiliate me in front of everyone." Her voice hardened. "I couldn't let that happen." Marcus felt ice spreading through his veins. The accident, he realized. It wasn't an accident. "Do you know how easy it is to pay someone to cut brake lines?" Victoria asked casually. "How simple it is to arrange for a truck to be in the wrong place at the wrong time." She leaned closer. "I didn't want it to come to this. I really didn't. But you didn't give me a choice." Marcus wanted to scream. He wanted to rise up from this bed and wrap his hands around her throat and demand to know how she could do this, how she could betray everything they had built together. But his body was a prison, and all he could do was listen. "The doctors think you'll die," Victoria continued. "They give you a 30% chance of ever waking up. And even if you do, they say you might never be the same. Brain damage, cognitive impairment. The whole list of horrible possibilities." She stood up. "I'm willing to wait," she said. "For now. But if you don't wake up soon, I might have to help things along." The door opened. Daniel's footsteps entered the room. "Anything from Robert?" Victoria asked, her voice instantly transforming into something soft and worried. "He's reviewing the company bylaws," Daniel replied. "We need to figure out who has authority while Marcus is incapacitated." "Of course," Victoria said. "The company must be protected." Marcus heard the double meaning in her words. Daniel didn't. "I'll stay with him for a while," Daniel said. "You should go home and rest." Victoria sighed dramatically. "I don't want to leave him." You need to take care of yourself, Daniel insisted. Marcus would want that. A pause. You're right, Victoria finally said. I'll be back this afternoon. She leaned down and kissed Marcus's forehead. The touch of her lips felt like poison. Get well soon, darling, she whispered. Then she was gone. Daniel sat in the chair beside the bed and took Marcus's hand. I don't know what's happening, Daniel said quietly. But something doesn't feel right. Marcus wanted to shout at him, scream that Victoria was a murderer, that she had tried to kill him, that she was planning to finish the job. I've known Victoria for 15 years, Daniel continued. She's always been a little cold, a little distant. But lately she's been different, more calculated. He squeezed Marcus's hand. Robert called me last week, Daniel said. He told me you were making changes to your will. Big changes. And that Victoria didn't know about them. Marcus's heart pounded. I didn't ask what the changes were, Daniel continued. It wasn't my business. But now I can't stop thinking about it. He was quiet for a moment. If you can hear me, Mark, if you're in there somewhere, I need you to fight. Whatever is happening, whatever you discovered, we can deal with it together. But you have to wake up. Marcus pushed with everything he had. He focused all his energy on his right hand, the hand Daniel was holding, trying to move just one finger, trying to give his brother some sign that he was there, that he was listening, that he needed help. Nothing happened. Daniel sighed and released his hand. I'll be back tonight, he said. I love you, brother. He stood and walked toward the door. Marcus kept trying. And just as Daniel's footsteps reached the doorway, something happened. His finger twitched. It was tiny, barely perceptible, gone as quickly as it came. Daniel didn't notice. He kept walking, the door closing behind him. But Marcus felt it. A spark of hope in the darkness. He wasn't gone, not yet. His body was still fighting, still trying to respond. And if his body was fighting, then Marcus would fight too. He had information now. He knew Victoria's plan. He knew she had arranged the accident. He knew she was waiting for him to die. But she didn't know he could hear her. That was his advantage, his only weapon in a war he couldn't physically fight. Marcus made a decision in that moment, lying paralyzed in that hospital bed. He would not wake up, not yet. He would listen. He would gather information. He would wait for Victoria to reveal enough of her plan that she couldn't deny it. And then when the time was right, he would open his eyes. And Victoria Thornton would learn that some men are more dangerous silent than they ever were speaking. Angela returned that afternoon to check on him. Your vitals are looking a little better, she said, studying the monitors. That's a good sign. She moved around the bed, adjusting his position slightly, checking the tubes and wires. Your wife was here earlier. Angela continued. She left before I could speak with her. There was something in the nurse's voice. A note of caution, perhaps, or curiosity. I noticed she didn't hold your hand, Angela said softly. The whole time she was here, she never touched you. Not once. Marcus filed that away. Angela was observant. She was paying attention. Your brother holds your hand every time he visits. Angela continued. He talks to you, tells you about his day, asks you questions even though you can't answer. She paused. That's what love looks like, Mr. Thornton. I've seen it thousands of times. And I've also seen what it looks like when love isn't there. She touched his hand gently. I'm going to keep watching, she said quietly. And if something doesn't seem right, I'm going to say something. Marcus wished he could thank her. This woman, this stranger, this nurse who had no reason to care about him beyond her professional duty, was paying more attention to his situation than his own wife. Rest now, Angela said. I'll be back in a few hours. She left, and Marcus began to plan. Victoria returned at 6 p.m., and this time she brought someone with her. Marcus recognized the voice immediately. Richard Hayes. Are you sure this is a good idea? Richard asked, his voice low and nervous. No one will think twice about it, Victoria replied. You're an old friend of the family. You're here to pay your respects. And if he wakes up? Victoria laughed. Look at him. He's not waking up. They entered the room together, and Marcus felt the air change. Two predators circling his bed. So this is the great Marcus Thornton, Richard said. Not so impressive now, is he? Victoria moved to the window. We need to talk about the timeline. I thought we agreed to wait, Richard said. That was before Daniel started asking questions. Victoria replied. He spoke to Robert Chen today. He's looking into Marcus's recent business decisions. So if he finds out about the will changes, he's going to start connecting dots. Victoria's voice was tight with frustration. Marcus was going to cut me out completely. Everything was going to Daniel and Charity. 22 years, Richard. 22 years of my life, and I would have gotten nothing. Marcus felt rage building inside him. What do you want to do? Richard asked. I need access to his medical decisions, Victoria said. If I have that, I can make sure he doesn't wake up. You're talking about murder. I'm talking about mercy, Victoria corrected. He's suffering. Anyone can see that. Sometimes the kindest thing to do is let someone go. Richard was quiet for a long moment. And what about us? He finally asked. Once the estate is settled, we'll have everything we need. Victoria's voice softened, became almost seductive. We can go anywhere. Do anything. Start a new life together. What about Daniel? Daniel isn't a problem. He trusts me. And once Marcus is gone, he'll have the company to worry about. He won't have time to investigate his brother's grieving widow. Marcus listened to every word, burning them into his memory. So what's the plan? Richard asked. I'm meeting with the hospital board tomorrow, Victoria said. I'm going to request authority over Marcus's medical decisions. As his wife, I have the legal right. And if they say no, they won't. I've been playing the devoted wife perfectly. No one suspects anything. Footsteps approached the door. Victoria and Richard both fell silent. Mrs. Thornton. It was Angela's voice. Is everything all right? Yes, of course, Victoria said sweetly. This is Richard Hayes, an old family friend. He just came to see Marcus. That's very kind, Angela said. But visiting hours are ending soon. I'll need to ask you both to wrap up. Of course, Victoria replied. We were just leaving. She leaned down and kissed Marcus's forehead again. Sleep well, darling, she whispered. Then she walked out, Richard following close behind. Angela stayed. She stood by the door for a moment, and Marcus could feel her eyes on him, studying his face. That man, she said quietly. He looked at you like you were already dead. She moved closer to the bed. And your wife? She continued. She smiled when she said goodbye to you. Not a sad smile. Not a worried smile. Angela touched his hand. I don't know what's happening here, Mr. Thornton, but I don't like it. She squeezed his fingers gently. And neither does your body. Your heart rate spiked 3 times while they were in the room. The monitors showed it. She was quiet for a moment. I'm going to document everything Angela said. Every visitor, every conversation I hear, every change in your vitals. If something bad happens to you, there will be a record. Marcus wanted to cry. This woman, this guardian angel in nurse's scrubs, was doing what he couldn't do himself. You hang in there, Angela whispered. Something tells me you're stronger than everyone thinks. She left, and Marcus lay in the darkness, gathering his strength, preparing for the battle ahead. He had allies now. Daniel, who suspected something was wrong. Angela, who was watching and documenting. He had enemies. Victoria and Richard, who were planning to kill him. And he had information. Their plan, their timeline, their weaknesses. Now he just had to survive long enough to use it. The third night was quiet. Victoria didn't come. Daniel visited briefly, promising to return in the morning. Angela checked on him every few hours, always with a gentle touch and a few soft words. Marcus spent the hours practicing. He focused on his right hand, the one that had twitched when Daniel was leaving. He concentrated with everything he had, trying to recreate that tiny movement. Move, he commanded. Move. Nothing. Move. Nothing. He tried for hours, exhausting himself mentally while his body remained still. But somewhere around 3 a.m. something happened. His pinky finger twitched. It was small, almost imperceptible. But it was real. It was progress. Marcus felt tears that couldn't fall. Relief that couldn't be expressed. He was still in there. His body was still responding. He just needed more time. But time was running out. The next morning, Victoria arrived early. She was dressed professionally, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked like a woman going to a business meeting, not visiting her dying husband. "I have a meeting with the hospital administrators," she told the nurse at the station. "They're expecting me." Marcus heard her heels clicking down the corridor away from his room. She was going to request medical authority, just like she'd planned. An hour later, Daniel arrived. "Mark, I don't know what's happening, but something's wrong," Daniel said urgently. "Victoria's meeting with the hospital board. She's asking for the power to make medical decisions for you." He paced beside the bed. "I spoke to Robert this morning. He told me about the documents you were working on." "Marcus, were you planning to divorce her?" Marcus screamed inside his prison of flesh. Yes, I was going to divorce her. She's been cheating on me. She tried to kill me. She's going to finish the job if you don't stop her." Robert showed me some of the evidence, Daniel continued. "The financial irregularities. The private investigator's report." "My God, Marcus, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to protect you," Marcus thought. "Because I didn't want to burden you with my problems." "I've called an emergency meeting with the board of directors," Daniel said. "We're going to block Victoria's request for medical authority. But I don't know if we have enough time." He sat down and took Marcus's hand. "Please, Marcus, if you can hear me, you have to wake up. I can't fight this alone." Marcus pushed. He pushed with everything he had. His finger twitched. Daniel froze. "Marcus. Did you just... Marcus, can you hear me?" Marcus pushed again. Another twitch, stronger this time. "Oh my God," Daniel breathed. "You can hear me. You're in there." He gripped Marcus's hand tighter. "Don't stop fighting, Marcus. Whatever you do, don't stop fighting. I'm going to stop Victoria. I'm going to protect you. But I need you to come back to us." Marcus twitched his finger again. Daniel laughed, a sound caught between joy and tears. "That's it," he said. "That's my brother. You fight. You keep fighting." The door opened. Angela stepped in. "Mr. Thornton," she said to Daniel, "I need to speak with you. It's urgent." Daniel stood still, holding Marcus's hand. His finger moved. Daniel said breathlessly, "He can hear us." Angela's eyes widened. She rushed to the bed, checking the monitors. "His brain activity is different," she said. "Something's changing." She looked at Daniel. "We need to tell Dr. Patterson, and we need to do it quietly." "Why quietly?" Daniel asked. Angela hesitated. "Because your sister-in-law is in a meeting right now requesting the authority to take Mr. Thornton off life support." Daniel's face went white. "She's what?" "She's arguing that there's no hope of recovery, that it would be cruel to prolong his suffering." Angela looked at Marcus. "But his body is telling a different story." Daniel released Marcus's hand and moved toward the door. "Where's that meeting?" he demanded. "Conference room on the administrative floor," Angela said. "But sir, you can't just barge in." "Watch me," Daniel said. And then he was gone. His footsteps running down the corridor. Angela turned back to Marcus. "Did you hear that?" she asked softly. "Your brother is fighting for you." Marcus twitched his finger. Angela smiled. Daniel's footsteps echoed through the administrative corridor like gunshots. His heart pounded against his ribs. His hands were shaking. But his mind was clear, sharper than it had been in days. Victoria was trying to kill his brother, and she was doing it legally. He reached the conference room door and didn't bother knocking. He shoved it open so hard it slammed against the wall. 6 faces turned toward him. Hospital administrators in expensive suits. A woman from legal affairs with reading glasses perched on her nose. Dr. Patterson looking uncomfortable in the corner. And Victoria, seated at the head of the table like she owned the place, her expression shifting from confident to furious in a single heartbeat. "Daniel," she said sharply. "This is a private meeting, not anymore." Daniel strode into the room. "Whatever she's asking for, the answer is no." The hospital administrator, a silver-haired man named Dr. Williams, cleared his throat. "Mr. Thornton, this is highly irregular." "You know what else is irregular?" Daniel shot back. "A wife requesting the authority to end her husband's life when he's showing signs of recovery." Victoria laughed, but there was an edge to it now. "Signs of recovery. Daniel, I understand you're grieving, but Marcus hasn't moved in days." His finger moved. Daniel stared directly at her. 30 minutes ago. I was holding his hand and his finger moved. The room went silent. Dr. Patterson leaned forward. "Is this true?" "I watched it happen," Daniel said. 3 times. He can hear us. He's in there." Victoria's composure cracked for just a moment. "That's impossible," she said. "The doctor said there was no brain activity." "The doctor said there was minimal brain activity," Dr. Patterson corrected quietly. "Not none." Victoria turned on him. "You told me he wouldn't wake up. I told you the chances were low." Dr. Patterson replied carefully. "I never said impossible." Daniel watched Victoria's face. He saw the calculation behind her eyes, the rapid adjustment of plans, the barely concealed panic. "This meeting is over," Daniel announced. "My brother is alive. He's fighting. And no one is making any decisions about his care without his consent or mine." "You have no legal authority here," Victoria snapped. "I'm his wife. And I'm his brother. I'm also the co-executor of his estate and his designated healthcare proxy in the event of marital dispute." Victoria's face went white. "That's a lie. Call Robert Chen," Daniel said. "Ask him yourself." The room fell into tense silence. Dr. Williams looked between them like a man watching a bomb about to explode. Perhaps Dr. Williams said slowly, "We should postpone this discussion until Mr. Thornton's condition is reassessed." Victoria stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. My husband is dying, and you're all wasting time on false hope." She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. As she passed Daniel, she leaned close. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "A very big mistake." Daniel didn't flinch. "So are you." Victoria left. The door slammed behind her. Daniel turned to the administrators. "I want security posted outside my brother's room. 24 hours. No one gets in without my approval." Dr. Williams nodded slowly. "I think that can be arranged." Back in room 417, Marcus lay in darkness, his mind racing. He had heard Daniel's running footsteps fading down the corridor. He had heard Angela's urgent whisper about Victoria's meeting. He knew his brother was fighting for him, but he also knew Victoria would not give up easily. The minutes crawled by. Marcus focused on his hand, pushing, straining, demanding his body to respond. His pinky twitched, then his ring finger. Small movements, invisible to anyone not watching closely, but each one felt like a victory. The door opened. Angela's soft footsteps approached. "Mr. Thornton," she said quietly. "Your brother stopped the meeting." Victoria left angry. "Security is being posted outside your door." Marcus pushed. His finger moved. Angela gasped. "Oh my God!" She grabbed his hand. "Do that again." Marcus pushed harder. 2 fingers twitched. "You can hear me." Angela breathed. "You really can hear me." She squeezed his hand tight. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "Your wife is dangerous. I don't have proof, but I feel it. The way she looks at you, the things she says when she thinks no one is listening." She paused. "I'm going to protect you. I promise." Marcus wanted to cry. This woman, this stranger, was more loyal to him than his own wife. Angela released his hand. "I need to document this. The more evidence we have of your recovery, the harder it will be for anyone to argue you should be taken off life support." She hurried out. Marcus lay in the silence, his mind working furiously. Victoria would come back. He knew it. She wouldn't let Daniel's interference stop her. She had too much to lose. He thought about the evidence he had gathered before the accident. The private investigator's report, the financial records, the photographs of Victoria and Richard together. All of it was stored in his safe at home, protected by a code only he knew. If Daniel could get to that safe, he would have everything he needed. But how could Marcus tell him he couldn't speak? He couldn't write? He could barely move a finger. Unless... Marcus began to plan. 2 hours later, Daniel returned. He looked exhausted. His tie loosened his hair, disheveled from running his hands through it. But his eyes were bright with determination. "Mark," he said, sitting beside the bed, "I bought us some time. Victoria's request has been tabled pending a full neurological evaluation. Dr. Patterson is scheduling tests for tomorrow." Marcus pushed. His finger twitched. Daniel grabbed his hand. "That's it. That's what I saw before." He leaned closer. "Can you hear me? Twitch once for yes." Marcus twitched. Daniel let out a shaky breath. "Oh, God. Oh, thank God." He wiped his eyes with his free hand. "Okay. Okay, we can work with this. Twitch once for yes, twice for no. Understand one twitch." Daniel laughed, a sound caught between joy and tears. "You stubborn son of a bitch. You're still in there." Marcus twitched once. Daniel's expression grew serious. "Mark, I need to ask you something. Robert showed me some documents, evidence you were gathering against Victoria." He paused. "Is she dangerous?" One twitch. Emphatic. Desperate. Daniel's face hardened. "Did she have something to do with the accident?" Marcus pushed with everything he had. One twitch, then another single twitch, then another. "Yes, yes, yes." Daniel stood abruptly, his hands clenched into fists. "I knew it. I knew something was wrong." He paced beside the bed. "That crash wasn't random. The police said the truck driver fled the scene. They never found him." Marcus twitched once. Daniel stopped pacing. "There's more evidence somewhere, isn't there? Something that proves what she did." One twitch. "At the house." At the office, Marcus waited. One twitch for the first question. "At the house," Daniel repeated. "Okay. Where?" He thought for a moment. "Your study?" One twitch. "The safe?" One twitch. Daniel nodded grimly. "I don't know the combination." Marcus felt frustration surge through him. How could he communicate a 6-digit code with only a twitching finger? Daniel seemed to understand the problem. "Okay, let's figure this out. I'll say numbers. You twitch when I hit the right one. First digit." He started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Marcus twitched. 4. Daniel confirmed. Second digit. 1, 2, 7. Marcus twitched. 4, 7. Daniel muttered. "This is going to take a while, but we'll get there." 20 minutes later, Daniel had the complete code. 472916. "I'll go tonight," Daniel said, "after visiting hours. Victoria won't expect me to move this fast." Marcus twitched once. Daniel leaned down, his face close to his brother's. "You hold on. Whatever happens, you keep fighting. I'm going to nail her for this. I swear to God." He squeezed Marcus's hand one final time and left. Marcus lay in the darkness, hope and fear battling inside him. If Daniel got the evidence, Victoria was finished. But Victoria was smart and desperate, and she still had access to the house. Please, Marcus thought. Please let him get there first. The next 3 hours were agony. Marcus lay motionless, every sound amplified in his hyper-aware state. Footsteps in the corridor, murmured conversations, the steady beep of his heart monitor, the soft hiss of the ventilator. At 8:47 p.m., the door opened. Victoria's heels clicked against the floor. Marcus's heart rate spiked. The monitor beeped faster. Victoria paused. "Well," she said coldly, Someone's awake in there. She moved closer to the bed. Marcus heard her breathing controlled but tight with anger. Your brother thinks he's clever, Victoria said. He thinks he stopped me today. She laughed softly. He has no idea who he's dealing with. She sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped under her weight. I've been planning this for 2 years, Marcus. 2 years of moving money, building connections, preparing for the day when I wouldn't need you anymore. Her hand rested on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. You were supposed to die in that crash? She continued. The truck driver was paid very well to make sure of it. But you always were stubborn. Marcus felt rage building inside him, white-hot and helpless. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. It doesn't matter. One way or another, this ends soon. Daniel can't watch you forever. And accidents happen in hospitals all the time. She stood. Sweet dreams, darling. Her heels clicked toward the door, then stopped. Oh, Victoria said casually. I'm going home tonight. I need to pick up a few things from your study. Maybe check the safe. Marcus's blood ran cold. She knew. Somehow she knew. Victoria laughed at his silence. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you and Daniel having your little finger conversation? The nurses talk, Marcus. Everyone talks. The door opened. Don't worry, Victoria said. By the time your brother gets there, anything useful will be long gone. She left. Marcus pushed against his paralysis with every ounce of strength he had. His fingers twitched. His hand trembled. But he couldn't move, couldn't call out, couldn't warn Daniel. He was trapped, and Victoria was already on her way. Angela found him 20 minutes later, his heart rate dangerously elevated, his blood pressure spiking. Mr. Thornton, she said urgently. What happened? Can you hear me? Marcus pushed. His whole hand spasmed. Angela grabbed it. Something's wrong. Tell me. One twitch for yes. Marcus twitched frantically. Once, twice, 3 times. Again and again. Angela's face went pale. Your wife, she was here. One desperate twitch. She said something. Something bad. One twitch. Angela pulled out her phone. I'm calling your brother. She dialed. It rang, and rang, and rang. He's not answering, she said. He might be driving. Marcus twitched wildly. Angela understood. She's going to the house too, isn't she? One twitch. Angela didn't hesitate. She ran to the door and called to the security guard. I need you to reach Daniel Thornton immediately. It's an emergency. His wife is going to their house. She might destroy evidence. The guard grabbed his radio. Angela returned to Marcus's side. I sent the message. It's all we can do now. Marcus lay still, his heart pounding, his mind screaming. Daniel was driving toward the house. Victoria was driving toward the house. One of them would get there first, and everything depended on which one. Across the city, Daniel's phone buzzed on the passenger seat of his car. He glanced at it, saw the hospital's number, and hesitated. He was only 10 minutes from the house. Whatever it was could wait. He kept driving. Behind him, Victoria's Mercedes cut through traffic, her foot pressed hard on the accelerator. She had a 15-minute head start. She knew shortcuts, Daniel didn't. She smiled as she drove. Poor Daniel, she thought. Always one step behind. Daniel pulled into the driveway at 9:23 p.m. The house was dark. Victoria's car wasn't there. He let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He'd made it first. He hurried to the front door, punched in the security code, and stepped inside. The house was silent, cavernous, filled with shadows. Daniel moved quickly through the foyer, past the living room, down the hall to Marcus's study. The door was locked, but Daniel had a key. Marcus had given it to him years ago, just in case. The study was exactly as Marcus had left it. Desk covered in papers, bookshelves lined with first editions, and in the corner behind a painting of Lake Michigan, the safe. Daniel removed the painting and faced the keypad. His fingers trembled as he entered the code. 4, 7, 2, 9, 1, 6. The safe clicked open. Inside, Daniel found folders, dozens of them, financial records, bank statements, photographs of Victoria with Richard Hayes, a USB drive labeled evidence, and a letter handwritten addressed to Daniel. Daniel opened the letter. "If you're reading this," Marcus had written, "then something has happened to me. Everything you need to know is in this safe. Victoria has been stealing from me for years. She's been having an affair. And I believe she may be planning something worse. Protect yourself, brother, and don't trust her, not for a single moment." Daniel's hands shook as he gathered everything into a briefcase he found on Marcus's desk. Headlights swept across the window. Daniel froze. A car door slammed. Footsteps on the front porch. The beep of the security system being disarmed. Victoria was here. Daniel looked around frantically. There was a back door through the kitchen. If he moved fast enough, he could get out before she saw him. He grabbed the briefcase and ran. He made it to the kitchen just as the front door opened. He heard Victoria's heels on the marble floor, heard her drop her keys on the table. Daniel slipped out the back door and into the darkness of the garden. He crouched behind a hedge, heart pounding, clutching the briefcase like his life depended on it. Inside, Victoria's footsteps moved toward the study. Daniel waited. A moment later, he heard her scream. It was a sound of pure rage, primal and terrifying. She had found the empty safe. Daniel didn't wait to hear more. He ran through the garden, climbed the fence, and sprinted to his car, parked on the street behind the house. He was inside and driving before Victoria could reach the back door. His phone buzzed. The hospital again. This time he answered. "Mr. Thornton." Angela's voice was urgent. "Your wife was here. She knows about the safe. She's heading to the house." "I know," Daniel said, his voice tight. "I just left. I got everything." There was a pause. "Thank God." Daniel gripped the steering wheel. "How's Marcus stressed?" Angela said. His vitals spiked when Victoria visited. "But he's stable now." "Tell him I have it," Daniel said. "Tell him we got her." "I will." Daniel hung up and drove toward the hospital, the briefcase on the seat beside him, his brother's evidence finally in safe hands. Behind him, Victoria stood in the empty study, staring at the open safe. Her perfect composure finally shattered. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "Richard," she said when he answered, "we have a problem." Back at the hospital, Angela delivered the message. "Marcus," she said softly. Daniel got the evidence. He made it out before Victoria arrived. Marcus lay still. But inside, for the first time since the accident, he felt something like peace. His brother had done it. The trap was closing. And Victoria Thornton had no idea how completely she had already lost. Victoria's hands trembled as she stared at the empty safe. The metal box gaped at her like a mocking mouth, hollow and accusing. Gone. Everything was gone. She grabbed the edge of Marcus's desk to steady herself. Her mind raced through possibilities. Daniel had been here. Daniel had taken everything. 22 years of careful planning, 2 years of meticulous preparation, all unraveling because of one meddling brother-in-law. Her phone was already in her hand. She dialed Richard's number, her fingers shaking so badly she had to try twice. He answered on the second ring. "Victoria." "What's wrong?" "The safe is empty," she hissed. "Daniel got here first. He has everything." Silence on the other end. Then Richard's voice tight with fear. "What do you mean, everything?" "The financial records, the photographs, the investigator's report. All of it, Richard. He has all of it." Richard cursed. How did he know about the safe? Victoria closed her eyes. Marcus. It had to be Marcus. Somehow her vegetable husband had found a way to communicate with his brother. It doesn't matter how, Victoria snapped. What matters is fixing this. How exactly do you plan to fix this? Richard's voice rose with panic. If Daniel goes to the police with that evidence, we're finished. Both of us. Victoria's jaw tightened. Daniel won't go to the police. Not yet. He'll want to confront me first. He'll want answers. And then what? Then I buy us time. Victoria's voice hardened. I've talked my way out of worse situations than this. She hung up before Richard could argue. For a long moment, she stood in the empty study surrounded by the remnants of a life she had grown to hate. Marcus's books, Marcus's awards, Marcus's empire built with her standing silently in his shadow. Not anymore. Victoria straightened her spine. She smoothed her hair. She took a deep breath. If Daniel wanted a war, she would give him one. At 10:47 p.m. Daniel arrived back at the hospital. He carried the briefcase like it contained a bomb, which in many ways it did. Every document inside was explosive. Every photograph was a detonation waiting to happen. Angela met him at the elevator. "Your brother's vitals stabilized after I told him you got the evidence," she said quietly. "But he's exhausted. The stress is taking a toll." Daniel nodded. "I need to see him." They walked together to room 417. The security guard outside the door checked Daniel's ID before letting him pass. Inside, Marcus lay motionless as always. But something was different. There was a tension in his body, a coiled energy that hadn't been there before. Daniel sat beside the bed and took his brother's hand. "I got it, Mark. Everything." He squeezed gently. "She's finished." Marcus's finger twitched once. Firm. Resolute. Daniel opened the briefcase on the bed. He pulled out the letter Marcus had written, the one addressed to him. "I read this," Daniel said. You knew what she was planning." One twitch. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Marcus couldn't answer that question with a finger movement. But Daniel understood anyway. "You were trying to protect me," Daniel said softly. "Like you always do." One twitch. Daniel pulled out the photographs next. Victoria and Richard at a restaurant, their hands intertwined. Victoria and Richard entering a hotel together. Victoria and Richard kissing in a parking garage. "How long?" Daniel asked. Marcus twitched twice, then 4 more times, then another 2. Daniel tried to interpret. 2 years. One twitch. Daniel's face hardened. And the accident. The private investigator's report mentions a payment to someone called M. Torres. Was he the truck driver? One twitch. Daniel set down the photographs. His hands were shaking now, not with fear but with rage. "She tried to kill you," Daniel said. "My God, Mark. She actually tried to murder you." One twitch. "And now she knows I have the evidence." One twitch. Daniel stood abruptly pacing beside the bed. "We need to go to the police. Tonight. I have enough here to put her away for attempted murder." Marcus twitched twice. "No." Daniel stopped. "What?" "Why not?" Marcus twitched several times, a pattern Daniel couldn't decipher. Angela stepped forward. "Mr. Thornton, maybe he's trying to tell you something more complicated than yes or no." Daniel returned to his brother's side. "Mark, are you worried she'll get away with it? That the evidence isn't strong enough?" 2 twitches. "No." "Then what?" Marcus pushed hard. He focused everything on his hand, willing it to move, to gesture, to communicate what words could not. His hand lifted, barely an inch off the mattress, trembling with effort, but it moved. Angela gasped. "Oh my God!" Daniel stared in disbelief. "Mark, can you move your hand?" Marcus let his hand fall back. The effort had exhausted him, but he had shown them something crucial. He was getting stronger. Angela checked the monitors. "His brain activity is increasing," she said. "Whatever's happening, his body is starting to respond." Daniel leaned close to his brother. "You want to wait. You want to wake up before we go to the police." One twitch. "You want to testify yourself." One twitch. Emphatic. Daniel understood. A comatose victim's finger twitches could be dismissed in court. But a fully conscious billionaire pointing at his wife and saying she tried to murder him, that was irrefutable. "How long?" Daniel asked. "How long before you can wake up?" Marcus didn't know the answer, but he twitched once anyway. A promise, a commitment. He would wake up, no matter what it took. At 7:15 a.m., Victoria arrived at the hospital. She had spent the night preparing. Her makeup was flawless. Her outfit was carefully chosen to project vulnerability and grief. She had rehearsed her lines until they sounded natural. Daniel was waiting for her in the lobby. Victoria stopped when she saw him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The lobby bustled around them, oblivious to the war being waged in silence. "Daniel," Victoria said finally. Her voice was soft wounded. "Can we talk? We have nothing to talk about. Please." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I know what this looks like, but you don't understand the whole story." Daniel's face remained stone. "I understand enough." Victoria stepped closer. "Marcus and I were having problems. I won't deny that, but I never wanted him dead. I never wanted any of this." Daniel laughed bitterly. "You're remarkable. You know that standing here lying to my face with tears in your eyes?" "I'm not lying," Victoria insisted. "Yes, I had an affair. Yes, I made mistakes. But I loved Marcus. I still love him." "You wrapped your fingers around his IV tube," Daniel said quietly. "You whispered in his ear that you wanted him dead." Victoria's composure flickered. "He told you that." "He tells me everything now." Victoria's eyes widened. "That's impossible. He's in a coma." "Is he?" Daniel stepped closer. "Are you sure about that?" Victoria, fear flashed across her face. Real fear, naked and uncontrolled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying my brother hears everything." Daniel's voice was cold. "Every whisper. Every threat. Every time you stood over him and smiled because you thought he was helpless." Victoria took a step back. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Daniel pulled out his phone. "I also have the contents of his safe. Financial records, bank statements, photographs of you and Richard Hayes, a detailed report from a private investigator." Victoria's face drained of color. And Daniel continued, "I have evidence of a payment made to a man named Miguel Torres, a truck driver who disappeared after running my brother off the road." Victoria's breath came faster now. "That proves nothing. By itself, maybe not." Daniel put his phone away. "But combined with Marcus's testimony, with the recording of you threatening him that the hospital security cameras captured last night." Victoria's eyes darted toward the ceiling, searching for cameras she hadn't noticed. "You didn't think about that, did you?" Daniel said. "When you told him you'd been waiting for him to die. When you squeezed his IV tube. All of it recorded. It was a bluff. Daniel had no recording." But Victoria didn't know that. Her composure shattered completely. "Daniel, wait," she said, her voice cracking. "We can work this out. I have money. I have connections. Whatever you want, I can get it. What I want is for you to pay for what you did to my brother." Victoria grabbed his arm. "Please, you don't understand. Richard pressured me. He manipulated me. I didn't want any of this." Daniel pulled away from her grasp. "Save it for your lawyer." He walked toward the elevators. Victoria stood frozen in the lobby watching him go. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richard. "We need to leave. Tonight. I have a plane waiting." Victoria stared at the message. Her mind raced through options, calculating odds, measuring risks. Then she made a decision. She typed back, "I'm not running. I'm finishing this." At 11:30 a.m., Dr. Patterson conducted a full neurological evaluation. Daniel stood in the corner of the room, watching as the doctor performed test after test. Marcus responded to each one. His fingers moved on command. His eyes flickered beneath closed lids when a light was shown on them. His heart rate changed when Daniel spoke to him. Dr. Patterson set down his instruments. His face was a mixture of amazement and confusion. "This is unprecedented," he said. 4 days ago, Mr. Thornton showed minimal brain activity. Now he's responding to stimuli with increasing consistency." "What does that mean?" Daniel asked. "It means he's waking up," Dr. Patterson said. "Slowly but definitely waking up. The swelling in his brain must be reducing faster than we anticipated. When will he be fully conscious? Impossible to say for certain. Could be hours, could be days. But at this rate, I'd estimate within the next 48 to 72 hours. Daniel looked at his brother. "Did you hear that, Mark? 72 hours?" Marcus's finger twitched once. Dr. Patterson shook his head in wonder. In 15 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this. He left to update the medical records. Daniel sat beside his brother. We just have to keep you safe for 3 more days. After that, you can tell everyone what she did. One twitch. Angela entered the room. Mr. Thornton, there's someone here to see your brother. A man named Richard Hayes. He claims to be a family friend. Daniel's face hardened. Don't let him in. He's very insistent. Daniel stood. I'll handle this. He walked to the nurse's station where Richard Hayes stood waiting. The man was handsome in a polished, artificial way. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect suit. The kind of man who looked trustworthy until you realized his smile never reached his eyes. Daniel Richard said smoothly, I heard about Marcus. Terrible tragedy. Daniel didn't bother with pleasantries. What do you want? I wanted to offer my support. Marcus and I have known each other for years. You've known his wife for years? Daniel corrected. Intimately, from what I understand. Richard's smile faltered. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. I'm telling you directly. I know about the affair. I know about the money, and I know about the truck driver. Richard's face went pale. So here's what's going to happen. Daniel continued. You're going to walk out of this hospital. You're going to get on whatever plane you have waiting. And you're going to disappear. Because if I ever see you again, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. Richard opened his mouth to respond. Daniel cut him off. That's not a negotiation. That's a warning. Richard stared at him for a long moment. Then without a word, he turned and walked away. Daniel watched him go. One threat neutralized. One more to go. At 3:45 p.m., Victoria made her move. She arrived at the hospital with a lawyer, a man named Theodore Blake, who specialized in medical rights cases. They marched into Dr. Williams's office and demanded an immediate meeting. I'm requesting an emergency injunction, Victoria announced, to remove Daniel Thornton from any involvement in my husband's care. Dr. Williams looked uncomfortable. On what grounds mental instability, Victoria said. Daniel has been making wild accusations against me. He's paranoid delusional, and his interference is causing additional stress to my husband. Theodore Blake placed a document on the desk. We have affidavits from 3 witnesses who observed Mr. Daniel Thornton behaving erratically, shouting at staff, making threats, refusing to allow Mrs. Thornton to see her own husband. Dr. Williams read the document carefully. These are serious allegations. They're lies, Daniel said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Daniel walked into the office, Angela beside him. Every word in that document is fabricated, Daniel said, and I can prove it. He placed his own folder on the desk. Security camera footage showing Victoria threatening Marcus. Bank records showing payments to the truck driver who caused the accident. And Daniel held up his phone, a recorded conversation between Victoria and Richard Hayes, discussing their plan to, quote, finish the job. It was still a bluff. Daniel had no such recording. But Victoria didn't know that. Her face went white. Theodore Blake looked at his client. Mrs. Thornton. Victoria's composure crumbled. That's not... I never... She turned to Daniel. You're making this up. Am I? Daniel pressed play on his phone. Nothing happened. Because there was no recording. But Victoria panicked anyway. She grabbed the phone from Daniel's hand and threw it against the wall. The room went silent. Dr. Williams stood slowly. Mrs. Thornton. I think you need to leave. Victoria's eyes were wild. You don't understand. He's lying. They're all lying. Security, Dr. Williams said into his intercom. I need assistance in my office. 2 guards appeared within seconds. Victoria backed away. You can't do this to me. I'm his wife. I have rights. You have the right to leave peacefully, Dr. Williams said, or be removed forcibly. Your choice. Victoria looked around the room. At Daniel's hard face, at Angela's steady gaze, at the security guards waiting by the door. She had lost. and she knew it. "This isn't over," she hissed at Daniel. Then she allowed the guards to escort her out. Theodore Blake gathered his papers. "I apologize for the disruption," he said quietly. "I was clearly not given accurate information about this situation." He left without another word. Daniel stood in the office, his heart pounding. His bluff had worked, but barely. Angela touched his arm. That was close. Too close. Daniel agreed. They returned to Marcus's room together. Daniel sat beside the bed and took his brother's hand. "She's gone," Daniel said. "For now. But she'll try something else. She's desperate." Marcus twitched once. "Dr. Patterson says you could wake up within 72 hours. We just need to protect you until then." One twitch. Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. "I'm not leaving this room until you open your eyes." Marcus wanted to thank his brother, wanted to tell him how much his loyalty meant, wanted to promise that when this was over, things would be different between them. Instead, he twitched once, and hoped Daniel understood. At 11:15 p.m., the hospital grew quiet. Daniel dozed in the chair beside Marcus's bed, finally succumbing to exhaustion. Angela had gone home, replaced by the night shift nurse, a young woman named Lisa, who checked vitals every hour, but otherwise stayed at the nurse's station. Marcus lay in darkness, his mind restless. He could feel his body responding now, not just his fingers, but his hands, his arms, the faintest sensation in his legs. The fog was lifting. The prison was cracking. Soon, very soon. A sound at the door made him focus. Footsteps. Soft. Careful. Not the confident click of Victoria's heels. Not the heavy tread of security. Something else. Someone trying not to be heard. The door opened slowly. Marcus strained to hear. The footsteps moved closer, stopped beside his bed. A voice. Male. Unfamiliar. "He doesn't look like much now, does he?" Another voice. "Victoria. Just do it quickly." Marcus's blood turned to ice. Victoria hadn't given up. She had hired someone to finish what the truck driver failed to do. The man moved closer. Marcus heard the soft clink of metal. A syringe being prepared. "Do it now," Victoria whispered, "before anyone comes." Marcus pushed against his paralysis with everything he had. His hand trembled, his arm tensed, but he couldn't move fast enough. The needle touched his IV line, and then Daniel's voice exploded through the room. "Get away from him!" Chaos erupted. Daniel tackled the man. Victoria screamed. The syringe clattered to the floor. Security guards burst through the door. Marcus heard it all. The shouting, the struggling. Victoria crying that she didn't do anything. The man being pinned to the ground, cursing and fighting. And through it all, Marcus pushed. His eyes flew open. For the first time in almost 2 weeks, Marcus Thornton saw the world. It was blurry, painful, overwhelming. But he saw Daniel wrestling with a stranger. He saw Victoria being restrained by security. He saw Angela rushing into the room, her face a mask of shock, and he did something he hadn't been able to do since the accident. He spoke. The word came out cracked, barely audible, rough from days of silence, but everyone heard it. "Stop." The room froze. Daniel looked at his brother. Marcus turned his head slowly, fighting against muscles that had forgotten how to move. His eyes found Victoria. She stared back at him, her face a portrait of terror. Marcus spoke again, each word costing him enormous effort. "I heard everything." Victoria's knees buckled. The security guards had to hold her up. Marcus looked at his brother. "Get the police." Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Already done, brother. Already done." Marcus closed his eyes again. Not from unconsciousness this time. From relief. It was over. Victoria Thornton had finally lost. The police arrived at 11:47 p.m. Detective Maria Santos led the team, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at the chaos in room 417 and immediately began issuing orders. Secure the scene. Get statements from everyone. And someone tell me what the hell happened here. Daniel stepped forward. That man, he pointed to the stranger being held by security, was about to inject something into my brother's IV line. My sister-in-law brought him here. Victoria screamed from across the room. That's a lie. I don't know who that man is. I came to check on my husband and found him here. Detective Santos looked between them. Her gaze settled on Victoria's face, reading the panic there with practiced ease. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. I am calm, Victoria shrieked. I'm being framed. Can't you see that? The detective turned to Angela. You're the nurse on duty. No, Angela said. I came back when I got Daniel's text. Lisa was on duty. She's at the nurse's station. Get her. Detective Santos ordered one of her officers. Marcus lay in the bed, his eyes still open, watching everything. Speaking had exhausted him. Moving was still almost impossible. But his mind was sharp, taking in every detail. Victoria's mascara running down her cheeks. Daniel's hands still shaking from the fight. The stranger's face twisted with anger and fear. And something else. The syringe on the floor. Clear liquid pooling around it. Detective Santos noticed it too. She crouched down, pulling on latex gloves. Nobody touch this, she said. She examined the syringe without picking it up. Potassium chloride, she murmured. Enough to stop a heart in seconds. Victoria's face went gray. The detective stood. She looked at Victoria with new eyes now. Cold eyes. The eyes of someone who had just connected very serious dots. Mrs. Thornton, she said, I'm going to need you to come with me. I didn't do anything, Victoria insisted. Her voice was rising, cracking. I didn't know what was in that syringe. I didn't know what he was planning. But you brought him here, Daniel said. You let him into my brother's room. Victoria spun toward him. You don't understand. Richard set this up. He told me he just wanted to talk to Marcus. He said if Marcus woke up and told everyone about the affair, we'd both be ruined. So you decided to make sure he never woke up? Detective Santos said flatly. No. Victoria shook her head frantically. No, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted time. Time to figure things out. Time to explain. Explain what Daniel's voice was raw with fury. That you paid someone to run him off the road. That you've been stealing from him for years. That you stood over his bed and told him you wanted him dead. Victoria's mouth opened. No sound came out. Detective Santos nodded to her officers. Take her in for questioning, and find out who this man is. The stranger finally spoke. His voice was rough, desperate. I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything without a lawyer. You'll get your lawyer, Detective Santos said. After you're processed. They dragged him out. Two officers flanked Victoria, each holding an arm. At the door, Victoria stopped. She turned back toward Marcus's bed. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Victoria spoke. Her voice was quiet now, stripped of pretense. I did love you once, she said. In the beginning, before everything got so complicated. Marcus stared at her. He wanted to feel something, anger, hatred, betrayal. But all he felt was emptiness. A vast hollow space where 22 years of marriage used to be. He said nothing. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time. Not the manufactured kind she had perfected over 2 decades. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then the officers led her away. The room fell silent. Daniel collapsed into the chair beside Marcus's bed. His whole body was shaking now, the adrenaline finally wearing off. It's over. Daniel breathed. Mark, it's finally over. Marcus turned his head slowly. His voice came out as a rasp. Not yet. Daniel leaned closer. What do you mean Richard Marcus managed? He's still out there. Daniel's expression hardened. The police will find him. No! Marcus struggled to form words. He's dangerous. He'll run. Daniel pulled out his phone. I'll call Detective Santos. Tell her about Richard's involvement. Marcus shook his head weakly. Evidence. The USB drive. Has everything. Daniel understood. The USB drive from the safe. The one labeled evidence. I'll make sure they get it, Daniel promised. At 2:30 a.m., Detective Santos returned. She had spent the last 3 hours questioning Victoria and the would-be assassin, whose name turned out to be Tony Marchetti, a professional fixer with ties to organized crime. "Mr. Thornton," she said, approaching Marcus's bed. "How are you feeling?" Marcus managed a weak smile. "Better than yesterday. I imagine so." Detective Santos pulled up a chair. "I need to ask you some questions. Are you up for it?" Marcus nodded. "Your wife has been very cooperative," the detective said. "Surprisingly so?" Daniel snorted. "Cooperative. She tried to have him killed." Detective Santos held up a hand. "She's claiming that Richard Hayes orchestrated everything. The affair, the financial manipulation, the accident, and tonight's attempt. She says she was a victim manipulated by a man who promised her a new life." "And you believe her?" Daniel demanded. "I believe she's trying to save herself by throwing Hayes under the bus." The detective's eyes were steady. "But that doesn't mean she's lying about his involvement." Marcus spoke slowly, each word an effort. "Richard planned it, but Victoria knew. She approved. Can you prove that the USB drive?" Marcus looked at Daniel. "Records of their conversations, emails, texts." Daniel reached into his briefcase and handed over the USB drive. "It's all here. Everything Marcus collected before the accident. Detective Santos took the drive. We'll need to verify the authenticity. But if this contains what you say it does, we'll have enough to charge both of them." "What about the truck driver?" Daniel asked. "Miguel Torres." "We're searching for him," the detective said. "Mrs. Thornton claims Hayes arranged that as well. Paid Torres $50,000 to cause the accident." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. The memory of that night crashed over him. The screaming metal, the shattering glass, the moment of impact that had changed everything. He opened his eyes again. "Find him," Marcus said. "He tried to kill me." "We will," Detective Santos promised. She stood to leave, then paused. "Mr. Thornton, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen a lot of people survive a lot of terrible things. But what you did lying there listening, waiting for the right moment, that took courage." Marcus shook his head slightly. "Couldn't move. No choice." "There's always a choice," the detective said quietly. "You chose to fight. That matters." She left. Daniel looked at his brother. "She's right, you know. Most people would have given up." Marcus's lips curved into a faint smile. "Too stubborn." Daniel laughed, but there were tears in his eyes. Yeah, you are." At 6:15 a.m., Dr. Patterson arrived to assess Marcus's condition. The improvement was remarkable. In just a few hours, Marcus had gone from barely twitching his fingers to moving his arms, turning his head, and speaking in short sentences. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Patterson said, shining a light into Marcus's eyes. "The brain has an incredible capacity for healing, but I've never seen anything quite like this." "How long until I can leave?" Marcus asked. The doctor hesitated. "You've been through severe trauma. Your body needs time to recover. I'd recommend at least 2 more weeks of observation followed by intensive physical therapy." Marcus shook his head. 2 weeks. Too long. Dr. Patterson sighed. "I understand you want to get back to your life, but pushing too hard could set back your recovery significantly." Daniel stepped in. "What if we arranged for round-the-clock care at home? Private nurses, physical therapists, everything he needs." The doctor considered this. "It's not ideal. But if Mr. Thornton is determined to leave, I'd rather he do it safely than check himself out against medical advice." "I'll make the arrangements," Daniel said. Marcus reached out and gripped his brother's arm. "Thank you." Daniel covered his hand with his own. You'd do the same for me. At 9:00 a.m., news of Victoria's arrest broke. The story spread like wildfire. Billionaire's wife arrested in assassination plot. Every major network picked it up. Reporters swarmed the hospital entrance. Social media exploded with speculation and scandal. Daniel watched the coverage on his phone, his expression grim. "They're calling it the story of the year," he said. "Everyone's talking about it." Marcus lay in bed, his strength slowly returning. Let them talk. The PR team wants to issue a statement. Daniel looked at him. What should I tell them? Marcus thought for a moment. The truth. Nothing more. Daniel nodded. Simple. Direct. Classic Marcus. The door opened. Angela entered carrying a tray. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, setting it beside the bed. The kitchen made some soup. Nothing fancy, but it's better than IV nutrients. Marcus looked at her. His guardian angel in scrubs. "Angela," he said. "I don't know how to thank you." She smiled. "You already did. You woke up. You protected me," Marcus continued, "when no one else was watching. When you had no reason to care." Angela's eyes glistened. "I had every reason." She touched his hand gently. "I've been a nurse for 15 years. I've seen what happens when people ignore their instincts when they look the other way because it's easier." She shook her head. "I promised myself I would never be that person." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You're not." Angela wiped her eyes quickly. "Now eat your soup before it gets cold. Doctor's orders." She left. Daniel watched her go. When this is over, he said, we need to do something for her. Something real. Marcus nodded. Already thinking about it. At 12:30 p.m., Detective Santos called with an update. "We found Richard Hayes," she said over the phone. Daniel had it on speaker so Marcus could hear. "He tried to board a private plane to Mexico early this morning. Border Patrol stopped him." "Did he talk?" Daniel asked. "He's lawyered up, but his attorney is already floating a plea deal. Hayes will testify against your wife in exchange for reduced charges." Marcus spoke from the bed. "Don't. Let him walk. He won't." Detective Santos assured him. "We're charging him with attempted murder conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. Even with a plea deal, he's looking at 20 to 30 years. And Victoria. That depends on what the evidence shows. If she was truly a passive participant, she might get a lighter sentence. But based on what I've seen so far, the detective's voice hardened, she was anything but passive." The call ended. Daniel turned to his brother. "It's really happening. They're both going to prison." Marcus stared at the ceiling. 22 years, he said slowly. "I slept next to her. For 22 years. You couldn't have known. I should have seen it. The signs were there. I just didn't want to look." Daniel sat beside him. "That's not on you. She chose to lie. She chose to betray you. That's her failure, not yours." Marcus turned his head to look at his brother. "When did you get so wise?" Daniel smiled sadly. "Watching you almost die changes a person." At 3:45 p.m., Victoria made a phone call from jail. The police allowed her one call. Everyone expected her to contact her lawyer. Instead, she called a number she had memorized years ago. The phone rang twice before someone answered. "Mrs. Thornton." The voice was surprised. "This is unexpected." "I need your help," Victoria said. Her voice was hollow, defeated. "I'm afraid I can't assist you anymore." The voice was cold now. "Our arrangement ended the moment you got caught." "You owe me," Victoria hissed. "After everything I did for you. You did nothing for me. You did everything for yourself. And now you're facing the consequences. You think Marcus will stop with me?" Victoria's voice rose desperately. "You think he won't dig deeper? Won't find out about all of it? A long pause. "What exactly are you suggesting?" the voice asked carefully. "I'm suggesting," Victoria said slowly, "that if I go down, I'm not going alone." The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone in her hand. A guard approached to take her back to her cell. She smiled grimly. The game wasn't over yet. At 7:00 p.m., Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Robert Chen, his longtime attorney, entered the room with a briefcase and a troubled expression. "Marcus," Robert said, pulling up a chair. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Marcus replied. His voice was stronger now, almost normal. "The doctors say I'll make a full recovery." "That's wonderful news." Robert hesitated. "But I'm afraid I have some information that might complicate things." "What do you mean?" Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "While reviewing the evidence against Victoria, our team discovered something. Additional financial irregularities that don't match her pattern." Marcus frowned. "Explain." "Someone else has been embezzling from Thornton Industries." Robert's face was grave. "Someone with high-level access. The amounts are significant. Over $15 million in the past 3 years. Who? We're not sure yet. But the transactions were carefully hidden. Whoever did this knew exactly how to avoid detection." Daniel leaned forward. "Could Victoria have a partner we don't know about?" "Possibly." Robert shook his head. "Or it could be someone entirely unconnected to her. Someone who used the chaos of Marcus's accident to cover their tracks." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Another enemy, hiding in the shadows. "Find them," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes." Robert nodded. "I've already put our best forensic accountants on it. We'll have answers soon." After Robert left, Daniel looked at his brother. "You don't seem surprised," Daniel observed. Marcus's jaw tightened. Victoria was desperate. But she wasn't smart enough to hide 15 million. "You think there's someone else involved?" "I think," Marcus said slowly, "that my wife wasn't the only snake in my garden." At 10:00 p.m., Marcus attempted to stand for the first time. Angela supported him on one side, a physical therapist named James on the other. His legs trembled violently. His muscles screamed in protest, but he forced himself upright, gripping their arms with white-knuckled determination. "Easy," James said. "Don't push too hard." "I have to," Marcus gasped. "Can't stay in this bed. Not anymore." He took one step, then another. His body felt foreign, uncooperative, like a machine that had forgotten its purpose. But he kept moving. By the time they lowered him back onto the bed, sweat drenched his hospital gown. His heart pounded, his lungs burned, and he was smiling. "Tomorrow," he said between breaths, "we do it. Again." Angela shook her head in amazement. "You're going to walk yourself right out of here, aren't you?" "That's the plan," Marcus replied. At 11:30 p.m., the hospital grew quiet. Daniel had finally gone home to shower and change, promising to return first thing in the morning. Angela's shift had ended. The night nurse, a different one this time, checked Marcus's vitals every hour, but otherwise left him alone. Marcus lay in darkness, his body exhausted, but his mind racing. Victoria, Richard, the mysterious embezzler, the truck driver still at large. So many threats, so many enemies, but also so many allies. Daniel, Angela, Robert, Detective Santos. He wasn't alone. For the first time since the accident, Marcus allowed himself to think about the future. Not just survival, but what came next. Rebuilding his company, rebuilding his life, finding out who else had betrayed him, and maybe eventually learning to trust again. His phone buzzed on the bedside table. Marcus reached for it slowly, his arm still weak but functional. The screen showed an unknown number. He answered anyway. "Mr. Thornton," a distorted voice said, "congratulations on your recovery. Marcus's blood ran cold. Who is this a friend? Or at least someone who could be? What do you want to warn you? The voice was calm, almost mechanical. Victoria Thornton made a phone call today. From jail. She's not finished fighting. How do you know this? I know many things. The voice paused. Your wife has secrets even you haven't discovered. And if she reveals them, you won't be the only one destroyed. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone in his hand. Another player. Another mystery. He pressed the call button beside his bed. The night nurse appeared within seconds. I need to speak with Detective Santos, Marcus said. Tonight. The nurse frowned. It's almost midnight, Mr. Thornton. I know, Marcus replied. Tell her Victoria made a phone call, and tell her someone else is watching. The nurse hurried away to make the call. Marcus lay back against his pillow, his heart pounding with renewed urgency. He had survived the accident. He had survived Victoria's betrayal. He had survived the assassination attempt. But the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Detective Santos arrived at the hospital at 1:15 a.m. Her face was tense, her eyes sharp with concern. She had received the nurse's message and left her bed without hesitation. Something about the urgency in Marcus Thornton's voice told her this couldn't wait until morning. Mr. Thornton, she said, entering the room. What happened? Marcus handed her his phone. Someone called me. 20 minutes ago. They knew about Victoria's phone call from jail. They warned me she has more secrets. Detective Santos took the phone and examined the call log. Unknown number. Probably a burner. They said Victoria isn't finished fighting. Marcus continued. They said if she reveals certain things, I won't be the only one destroyed. The detective's expression darkened. Did they identify themselves? No. The voice was distorted, but they knew details they shouldn't know. Detective Santos paced beside his bed. We recorded Victoria's phone call from jail, standard procedure. She contacted someone, but the number traced back to a disconnected line. Who did she call? We don't know yet. But she made threats, said she wouldn't go down alone. Marcus's jaw tightened. She's trying to leverage something, some secret she thinks will protect her, or bring others down with her. Detective Santos stopped pacing. Mr. Thornton, is there anything in your past that Victoria could use against you? Marcus met her eyes steadily. I built my company honestly. Every dollar, every deal, every decision. I have nothing to hide. What about your business partners, your board members? Marcus hesitated. Robert Chen mentioned something earlier. Additional embezzlement, $15 million that doesn't match Victoria's pattern. Detective Santos's eyes widened. 15 million. Someone with high-level access. Someone who knew how to hide it. Do you have any suspects? Not yet. But if Victoria knows who it is, she might use that information as a bargaining chip. The detective pulled out her phone. I'm going to request a full transcript of her jail call, and I'm putting additional surveillance on anyone with access to your accounts. There's something else, Marcus said. The person who called me tonight. They weren't threatening. They were warning. You think they're an ally? I think they have their own agenda. But right now, that agenda aligns with mine. Detective Santos nodded grimly. I'll have our tech team trace the call. But if they used a burner phone with voice distortion, we might not find anything. She left with a promise to return in the morning. Marcus lay in the darkness, his mind churning. Victoria had secrets. Someone else was embezzling. A mysterious caller was watching from the shadows. The web was more tangled than he had imagined. At 6:30 a.m., Daniel arrived with coffee and bad news. The board is in chaos, Daniel said, setting down the cups. Word got out about the embezzlement investigation. 3 members are threatening to resign. Who? Harrison Cole, Patricia Webb, and your CFO Michael Torres. Marcus froze. Torres. Daniel nodded. He's been with the company for 12 years? 15. Marcus's voice was hard. He has access to everything. Robert's team is already looking at him, but we don't have proof yet. Marcus pushed himself upright in bed. His body screamed in protest, but he ignored it. "Get Torres on the phone, now!" Daniel hesitated. "Mark, you're still recovering. Maybe this should wait." "It can't wait. If Torres is the embezzler, he's probably destroying evidence right now. Every hour we delay gives him more time to cover his tracks." Daniel pulled out his phone and dialed. The call went straight to voicemail. "He's not answering," Daniel said. "Try his home number. Same result." Marcus's gut tightened. "He's running." Daniel was already moving toward the door. "I'll send security to his house and his office." Marcus called after him. "Lock down his computer, his files, everything." Daniel disappeared into the hallway. Marcus reached for his own phone and called Robert Chen. "Robert," he said the moment the attorney answered. "Michael Torres. I need everything you have on him." "We were just about to call you," Robert said. "Our forensic team finished their preliminary analysis an hour ago. And the $15 million was funneled through a series of shell companies. All of them trace back to Torres." Marcus closed his eyes. 15 years. He had trusted Michael Torres for 15 years. "There's more," Robert continued. "Torres and Victoria had contact. Multiple phone calls over the past 6 months. We think they were working together." "Son of a bitch," Marcus breathed. "It gets worse." Robert's voice was grim. "The shell companies also received payments from Richard Hayes. This wasn't just embezzlement. It was a coordinated effort to drain your company while setting up your murder." Marcus felt sick. 3 of them, working together. And I never saw it. No one did. Torres was careful. He's been planning this for years. "Find him," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes." At 9:00 a.m., security found Michael Torres. He was at O'Hare Airport attempting to board a flight to Switzerland. TSA flagged his passport based on the alert Daniel had issued. He was detained in a private room sweating through his expensive suit, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Detective Santos called Marcus with the news. "We have him," she said. "He's claiming innocence." "Says Victoria, and Richard framed him." "That's convenient," Marcus replied. "He's asking to make a deal. Says he has information that will blow this case wide open." What kind of information he won't say. Not until he has immunity in writing. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. "Don't give him anything. Not yet. Let him sweat." There was a pause. "You sure if he really knows something? He knows plenty. But he's also guilty. He doesn't get to walk away clean just because he's willing to talk." Detective Santos sighed. "This is your call. But the DA might push for a deal if Torres's information is valuable enough. Then make sure whatever he says is worth the price." At 11:30 a.m., Victoria requested to see Marcus. The request came through her lawyer, a new attorney named David Morrison, who specialized in high-profile criminal cases. Morrison claimed Victoria had information critical to Marcus's safety and would only share it in person. Daniel was furious. "Absolutely not. She tried to have you killed. You're not going anywhere near her." Marcus considered the request carefully. His body had grown stronger over the past day. He could walk short distances, now speak without effort, think with crystal clarity. And he wanted answers. "I'll see her," Marcus said. Daniel stared at him. "Are you insane? She knows things about Torres, about the embezzlement. Maybe about whoever called me last night. She'll lie. She always lies, probably." Marcus met his brother's eyes, but sometimes lies reveal more than truth. At 2:00 p.m., Marcus entered the interrogation room at the county jail. He walked without assistance, though each step still cost him effort. His suit hung slightly loose on his frame, evidence of the weight he had lost. But his eyes were sharp, his posture straight, his presence commanding. Victoria sat at a metal table, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked different. Smaller somehow. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. Her makeup had faded. Her hair was pulled back carelessly. But her eyes were still calculating. "Marcus," she said as he sat across from her, "you look good. Better than I expected. Nearly dying has a way of clarifying things." Victoria smiled faintly. "You always were resilient." "What do you want, Victoria?" She leaned forward. "To help you." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Help me?" "You tried to kill me. I tried to survive. There's a difference. Explain that difference to me." Victoria glanced at the one-way mirror, knowing they were being watched. "What I'm about to tell you could get me killed. I need assurances. You're not in a position to negotiate. I'm in the only position that matters." Victoria's voice hardened. "I have information you need. Information about people you trust. People who are still out there, still planning, still waiting for the right moment to finish what we started." Marcus studied her face. She was terrified. Beneath the bravado, beneath the manipulation, there was genuine fear. "Who?" Marcus asked. Victoria shook her head. "Not until I have protection. Real protection. Witness security. A reduced sentence. Transfer to a facility out of state. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I'm the only one who knows the full picture." Victoria leaned closer. "Michael Torres was a pawn. Richard Hayes was a partner. But there's someone else. Someone above all of us. Someone who's been pulling strings for years." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "Who?" Victoria's eyes darted to the mirror again. "Promise me protection first." Marcus stood abruptly. "I don't make deals with people who tried to murder me." He walked toward the door. "It's someone on your board," Victoria called after him. "Someone you've known for decades. Someone who smiled at your wedding and shook your hand at every Christmas party." Marcus stopped. "They approached me 3 years ago," Victoria continued. "Said they had a plan. Said they could make us both rich if we worked together. All I had to do was keep you distracted while they moved money around." Marcus turned slowly. "Who?" Victoria shook her head. "Protection first." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then he walked out. In the hallway, Detective Santos was waiting. "Well," she asked. "She knows something," Marcus said. "Something real." "Do you believe her?" "I believe she's scared. And Victoria doesn't scare easily." At 4:45 p.m., Robert Chen called with a breakthrough. "We found something in Torres's files," Robert said. "Hidden correspondence. Encrypted, but our team cracked it." "What does it say?" "There's a reference to someone called the chairman. Torres reported to this person. Took orders from them. Received payments through them." "The chairman," Marcus repeated. "Any idea who it is?" "Not yet. But the correspondence mentions meetings, specific dates and locations. We're cross-referencing with your calendar and security logs." Marcus's mind raced. Someone he had met with regularly. Someone with board-level access. Someone who had been playing a long game. How many people fit that profile? Robert hesitated. 12. "But we can narrow it down. Do it fast. Whoever this is, they know we're closing in." At 7:00 p.m., Marcus made a decision. He gathered Daniel, Robert, Detective Santos, and Angela in his hospital room. The group had become his war council, the only people he trusted completely. "I'm accepting Victoria's deal," Marcus announced. Daniel jumped to his feet. "What, Mark? You can't be serious. She has information we need." "The chairman, the person behind all of this. If we don't find out who it is, they'll just try again." "There has to be another way," Daniel insisted. "There isn't." Marcus's voice was firm. "Torres is too low level. Richard Hayes only knew his piece of the puzzle. Victoria is the only one who saw the whole picture." Detective Santos nodded slowly. "I can arrange for witness protection, but the DA will want something in return. Victoria testifies against everyone involved. Torres, Hayes, the chairman. She gives us everything or the deal is off, and if she's lying, then she goes back to prison for the rest of her life." At 9:30 p.m., Victoria was transferred to a secure location. She signed the agreement with trembling hands, her eyes scanning every page. Witness protection, reduced sentence, transfer to a minimum security facility upon conviction. In exchange, she would reveal the chairman. Marcus watched through a video feed as Detective Santos conducted the interview. "Tell us everything the detective said." Victoria took a deep breath. "His name is Harrison Cole." Marcus felt the world tilt. Harrison Cole. Founding board member, mentor, friend. The man who had given the toast at Marcus and Victoria's wedding reception. "He approached me at a charity event 3 years ago." Victoria continued. "Said he had been watching me. Said he knew I wasn't happy. He offered me a way out." "What kind of way out?" "A partnership. He was already embezzling, had been for years. But he needed help. Someone inside the house. Someone who could keep Marcus distracted, manipulate his decisions, point him in the wrong direction when he got too close to discovering the truth." "And you agreed?" "Not at first. But he was persuasive." Victoria's voice dropped. "He showed me evidence, things Marcus had done, or things Harrison claimed Marcus had done. He made me believe my husband was a monster." Marcus watched the screen, his hands clenched into fists. What things Detective Santos pressed? Bribes, cover-ups, exploitation of workers. Harrison had documents, photos, testimonies. He said Marcus had built his empire on the suffering of others. And you believed him. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to believe him. It made everything easier. If Marcus was the villain, then I wasn't betraying him. I was escaping him." "But none of it was true," Detective Santos said. Victoria shook her head. "I found out later. After the accident. The evidence was fabricated. Harrison had created it to manipulate me. Why would he go to such lengths? Because Marcus was getting too close." Victoria looked directly at the camera as if she knew Marcus was watching. "Harrison has been stealing from the company for over a decade. $50 million, maybe more. He needed Marcus gone before the annual audit." "The accident," Detective Santos said. "Harrison arranged it. He gave me the money. He gave me the contact. He told me exactly how to make it look like an accident." Victoria's voice broke. "I thought I was protecting myself. I didn't realize I was just his puppet." Marcus turned away from the screen. Daniel stood beside him, pale with shock. "Harrison Cole. Jesus Christ. I trusted him," Marcus said quietly. "For 30 years. I trusted him. He played all of us." At 11:00 p.m., Harrison Cole was arrested at his Lake Forest estate. He came quietly, too quietly. As they led him to the police car, he looked directly at the news cameras and smiled. That smile haunted Marcus. It was the smile of a man who still had cards to play. At 6:00 a.m. the next morning, Marcus left the hospital. He walked out on his own 2 feet, Daniel beside him, Angela watching from the entrance with tears in her eyes. The press swarmed, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Marcus ignored them all. He climbed into the waiting car and closed his eyes. "It's over," Daniel said. "Harrison's in custody. Victoria's cooperating. Torres and Hayes are finished." Marcus shook his head. "It's not over. Not until I see them all convicted. Not until I know my company is safe." Daniel studied his brother's face. "You've changed." Marcus opened his eyes. Lying in that bed, listening to everyone plan my death, hearing my own wife whisper that she wanted me gone. He paused. "It changes a person. For better or worse, I don't know yet." Marcus looked out the window as Chicago passed by. "But I know one thing. What's that? I'll never be that vulnerable again." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the courtroom. Victoria sat at the defendant's table, her face hollow, her eyes fixed on the floor. Richard Hayes was beside her, looking older than his years. Michael Torres hunched in his chair, avoiding everyone's gaze. Harrison Cole sat ramrod straight, his expression unreadable. The jury had deliberated for 4 days. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor." The foreman stood. "In the matter of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, embezzlement, and fraud, we find all defendants guilty on all counts." Victoria collapsed in her chair. Richard Hayes cursed. Michael Torres wept. Harrison Cole simply closed his eyes. Marcus watched from the gallery, his face impassive. Daniel gripped his shoulder. "It's done." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes, it is." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. Mr. Thornton, one shouted, "How do you feel about the verdict?" Marcus stopped. He looked at the cameras, at the microphones thrust toward his face. 2 years ago, he said, I lay in a hospital bed, unable to move, unable to speak, listening to people I trusted plan my murder. My wife, my business partner, my mentor, people I had loved for decades. He paused. They thought I was helpless. They thought I couldn't fight back. They were wrong. He stepped closer to the microphones. I'm standing here today because I refused to give up. Because I had people around me who refused to give up. My brother, a nurse named Angela who saw what others missed. A detective who followed the truth wherever it led. His voice hardened. To anyone out there facing betrayal, facing impossible odds, feeling trapped and alone, I want you to know something. He looked directly into the cameras. Strength isn't about power or money or control. It's about refusing to surrender when everything is against you. It's about listening when you can't speak, fighting when you can't move, believing in justice even when the people closest to you have abandoned it. He straightened his shoulders. Victoria Thornton whispered in my ear that she wanted me dead. She thought those words would never be heard. She was wrong. I heard every word. And today, those words put her in prison. He turned to leave, then stopped. Some truths only reveal themselves when we think no one is listening. Remember that. He walked away from the cameras, Daniel at his side. 6 months later, Marcus stood at the window of his office on the 32nd floor of Thornton Industries. The company had recovered. Stock prices had rebounded. New leadership had been appointed. The damage Harrison Cole had caused was being repaired slowly, but surely. Angela Morrison had accepted a position as director of the company's new employee wellness program. She visited Marcus weekly, checking on him, reminding him to rest, making sure he didn't push himself too hard. Daniel had been appointed executive vice president. He sat across from Marcus now, reviewing quarterly reports. The numbers look good, Daniel said. Better than projected. Marcus nodded but didn't turn from the window. You okay? Daniel asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about what Victoria said, that she loved me once. In the beginning. Do you believe her? I don't know. Marcus finally turned. Does it matter? Maybe not. But you're allowed to grieve, Mark. Even for something that turned out to be a lie. Marcus sat down heavily. I spent 22 years building a life with her, having breakfast with her, falling asleep beside her. And the whole time she was looking for a way out. That's not your failure. That's hers. I know. Marcus rubbed his eyes. But it still hurts. It's supposed to. Daniel leaned forward. That's how you know you're human. Marcus managed a small smile. When did you become the wise one? Watching you almost die, remember? They sat in comfortable silence. Finally, Marcus spoke. I've been thinking about the future, and I want to establish a foundation, something that helps people who've been betrayed by those they trusted, domestic violence survivors, fraud victims, people who feel trapped and alone. That sounds like a good idea. I'm going to call it the Ruth Thornton Foundation, after Mom. Daniel's eyes glistened. She would have loved that. Marcus nodded. I hope so. 1 year after the accident, Marcus returned to the hospital. Not as a patient, as a visitor. He walked through the corridors he had been wheeled through on a gurney, past the nurse's station, where Angela had first noticed something wrong, to the private room where he had lain helpless while his wife planned his death. The room was empty now. Marcus stood in the doorway, remembering. The beeping machines, the hiss of the ventilator, the darkness that had pressed down on him like a weight, and Victoria's voice. If you die tonight, I'll finally be free. He had heard those words. He had remembered them. and they had given him the strength to fight. Angela appeared beside him. "I thought I might find you here." Marcus didn't take his eyes off the room. "This is where it all changed." "The accident, numb." Marcus shook his head. "The accident nearly killed me. But this room, this is where I learned who I really am." "And who is that?" Marcus turned to face her. "A survivor." Angela smiled. "That you are." They walked out together, leaving the empty room behind. At the entrance, Daniel was waiting with the car. "Where to?" he asked. Marcus looked up at the hospital, then at the city beyond. "Home," he said. As the car pulled away, Marcus thought about everything that had happened. The accident, the betrayal, the fight to survive, the long road to recovery. He had lost a wife. He had lost trusted friends. He had nearly lost his life. But he had gained something too. He had gained clarity, purpose, an understanding of what truly mattered: family, loyalty, truth. The things that remained when everything else was stripped away. Victoria had whispered that she would finally be free if he died. But Marcus Thornton was the one who was free now. Free from lies. Free from betrayal. Free from the prison of a marriage built on deception. He looked out the window as Chicago passed by a city he had built his dreams, in a city that had witnessed his darkest hour and his greatest triumph. He was Marcus Thornton. He had survived, and nothing, no one would ever make him forget the most important lesson he had learned lying helpless in that hospital bed. The truth always reveals itself to those who have the courage to listen.